All right, students, this is a very short revision video on SA 600 using the work of another auditor. So when I talk about using the work of another auditor, you need to act like a parent auditor. All right, as if you are the auditor of the company and there is a branch auditor who is another auditor. All right, and you are the main auditor, or you are the auditor of the holding company and there is another auditor of subsidiary company with whom you have to coordinate. All right, so just a little broad working. So let us say that X Limited is holding Y Limited. So obviously X Limited will prepare two financial statements. One is standalone financial statements. Another one is consolidated financial statements. Let us say X Limited is being audited by Mr. A. All right. And Y Limited is being audited by Mr. B. All right. So obviously Mr. A, while he is auditing consolidated financial statements, he is going to use the work performed by Mr. B. But let us say X Limited also has branches. And branches are being audited by Mr. C. So even while Mr. A is auditing standalone financial statements, because branches will be consolidated with standalone financial statements only, correct? So obviously Mr. A is going to use the work performed by Mr. C, that is the branch auditor. So whenever you are going to use the work performed by the branch auditor, the subsidiary auditor, the associate auditor, the joint venture auditor, all right, and after that, you're going to prepare your audit report. That is where you will talk about SA 600 using the work of other auditor. The biggest mistake that students commit over here, they feel that this other auditor is any other auditor. All right. No, it is purely auditor of branch, subsidiary, associate, joint venture. All right. When you're auditing standalone financial statements, you will use the work performed by branch auditor. When you're auditing consolidated financial statements, you will use the work performed by, yes, the subsidiary auditor, the associate auditor, joint venture auditor, if they have been consolidated. All right. So please be careful with the applicability of SA 600. Now, how many questions they can ask with respect to SA 600? First one is, you need to act like a principal auditor. Mr. A, you need to act like a principal auditor. All right. So look at this. For this purpose, auditor would consider. Means you should have the knowledge of the business of the components. This branch, subsidiary, associate, joint venture, they're called as components. You should know that how much is the materiality level of the financial information of the components, how much importance needs to be given. So you need to act like a principal auditor. This was there in July 21 attempt. So for this purpose, auditor would consider materiality of the portion of financial information which principal auditor audits, the principal auditor's degree of knowledge regarding the business of the components. All right. So you should have knowledge of business of the components, the ROMM, risk of material misstatement in the financial information of the overall entity and in the financial information of the components. And then after having this knowledge, after analyzing these things, you need to perform additional procedures as set out in this essay. Am I clear with this? Yes. So materiality analysis, then you should have knowledge of business of the components. Then you should analyze risk of material misstatement, and then you need to perform additional audit procedures. You need to perform additional audit procedures, all right, as set out in this essay. So A for audit procedures. So please ensure that you are not messing up with this particular answer. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Now, as a principal auditor, can you just direct the other auditor? No. Then what are the procedures you need to perform for coordination? In order to ensure that the work of other auditor is adequate for you. All right. In order to coordinate with the other auditor, what are the procedures that you need to perform? One of their favorite theory questions. All right. Now, for this purpose, principal auditor should perform following procedures. Now, I have developed a code for this. All right. This is a quick revision video. So I'll go quickly by the code. A written special advice. I have a written special advice for you. Plan and arrange the timetable for accounts and audit to ensure that you have a good group one. All right. So written special advice for you. Plan and arrange timetable for accounts and audit. Now, there are various points in this. Look at this. Principal auditor can advise the other auditor that how his work and report will be used. All right. Then principal auditor should make sufficient arrangements right from the planning stage of audit for coordination. Then principal auditor should inform the other auditor about special audit considerations, like areas where more attention is required, like related party transactions and stuff. All right. Then obviously about the timetable for completion of audit. Listen to this. Principal auditor can also obtain a declaration from other auditor. That other auditor, you please give it to me in writing that you have complied with these requirements, with the significant accounting, auditing, and reporting requirements. Yes. Very good pointer for MCQ also. And then Principal auditor can advise the other auditor about significant accounting, auditing, and reporting requirements. All right. So these are the points broadly that you should be aware of for the theory question, that how principal auditor needs to coordinate with the other auditor. But the point is, can principal auditor access the working papers of other auditor? Can principal auditor establish right over the other auditor? All right. Is principal auditor the boss of the other auditor? For that, you should read some pointers which I have given over here. Rights of principal auditor. In certain situations, the statute governing the entity may confer a right on the principal auditor to visit a component. Yes, as per Companies Act, anyways, auditor of the company has a right to visit the branches and also access the records of subsidiaries and joint ventures. So that is completely fine. All right. Principal auditor might discuss with other auditor the audit procedures applied. Yes, principal auditor can discuss with other auditor what kind of procedures you have applied. In fact, principal auditor can also send a questionnaire on email, a detailed questionnaire on which other auditor must reply. All right. But let me be very clear that principal auditor cannot establish his right over the working papers of other auditor. Look at this. Principal auditor might discuss with other auditor. This is more important for finance. Yeah, these couple of points. The audit procedures applied, or review a written summary of other auditors' procedures and findings, which may be in the form of a completed questionnaire or checklist. So remember this, principal auditor can send a checklist or questionnaire to the other auditor. The principal auditor may also wish to visit the other auditor and have a meeting with him. He may also decide that some supplemental tests, that is additional tests, are necessary, but he cannot direct the other auditor to perform these tests. No, it will depend with the discussion with the management and whether other auditor agrees or not to perform these tests. Otherwise, principal auditor may himself have to perform these tests. He may also decide supplemental test of records of financial statements of the components are necessary. Such test may, depending upon circumstances, be performed by principal or other auditor. All right. When considered by him, principal auditor may require the other auditor to answer a detailed questionnaire regarding matters on which he requires information. The other auditor should respond to such questionnaire. But let me be very clear, principal auditor cannot establish his right over the working papers of other auditor, because working papers are property of auditor, and this line we have studied in SQC1. So whatever you have studied in this box, this helps you to solve case study based questions. What we were doing up till now, participation by principal auditor and whether the work of other auditor is adequate or not, these two are separate theory questions. All right. But what you have studied over here, this can be a case study based question. All right. Liability obligations of principal auditor. Where another auditor has been appointed for the component, the principal auditor would normally be entitled to rely upon the work of such other auditor. Was other auditor is not your article. You're not supposed to review everything that other auditor has done. In fact, if you trust the other auditor's procedures and if there is nothing to suggest doubt, then you can rely upon the work of other auditor. He is also a separate statutory auditor boss. All right. Okay. So look at this. Principal auditor would normally be entitled to rely upon the work of such auditor unless there are special circumstances to make it essential for him to visit the component. If there are such special circumstances, that means there is some doubt that you have, or you feel that there was a material area which was not verified. In such special circumstances, you can visit the component, not an issue at all. All right. The principal auditor would not be responsible in respect of work entrusted to other auditors. Remember this, except in circumstances which would have aroused a suspicion. If there were some clear circumstances where you shouldn't have used the work of other auditor, then in that case, obviously, you should have done the work on your own. Otherwise, normally, generally, you can rely upon the work of other auditor, not a problem at all. And from these discussions comes the last important discussion, that is the reporting considerations. All right. So, as we have understood one thing, that principal auditor can rely upon the work of other auditor unless there are exceptional circumstances or special circumstances suggesting otherwise, that he should not rely. All right. Now, based upon this point, there are two possibilities. Principal auditor decides to use the work performed by other auditor, that okay, he will use his work and he will rely upon it because there is nothing else to suggest the doubts. All right. Then in that case, principal auditor must disclose the extent of financial information audited by other auditors. Just some quantum, how much financial information was audited by other auditor, and this will be disclosed in other matter paragraph. All right. Okay. Yes, in the audit report format, you will see that this some disclosures have also been given under auditor's responsibility paragraph, but that is with respect to the responsibility that, okay, this much work was done by the auditor and we have relied upon it because there was nothing else to suggest some doubts. But the extent of financial information that is audited by other auditor, this must be disclosed in other matter paragraph. So what I'm giving over here is very much exam oriented, that this must be disclosed in other matter paragraph. All right. However, if principal auditor is unable to rely upon the work performed by other auditor, that means he has decided that he's not going to use his work. All right. If principal auditor is unable to rely upon the work performed by other auditor, then in that case, what is he going to do? Then do the work on your own. Then principal auditor should audit the component, the material financial information of the component. However, it is possible because of practical restrictions on timelines and stuff, it is not possible now at the last moment to audit the component. All right. If principal auditor is unable to do so, now he cannot rely upon the work of other auditor and he is not in a position to audit the component also. So the final conclusion is that sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is not available. This is a limitation on scope of audit due to circumstances, and there will be an impact on opinion. Which opinion? Either qualified or disclaimer of opinion. Sir, why you have straight away come to qualified or disclaimer of opinion? For that, I have an opinion separate revision video. You can see that. But let me tell you, if they ask you to choose, if the question is not very clear, then you go with qualified opinion. Otherwise, in theory, you can just end with either qualified or disclaimer. But for disclaimer, question has to be very clear. The component has to be such material and pervasive that you feel that, okay, not obtaining information of this component will render me unable to express an opinion on the overall financial statements. Only then you go for disclaimer. Otherwise, you go with qualified opinion. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, there are some additional points in audit of CFS for more discussion. All right. But audit of CFS and stuff is already available in my revision videos. You can see it from there also. You will see some theory points on the responsibility of principal auditor over there. And then you will also see the points on what if there is a material foreign component, all right, which is preparing financial statements as per foreign accounting framework, then what to do. So there are points in audit of CFS, all right, with respect to the procedures to be performed by principal auditor and some more reporting considerations. All right. So that is it with respect to SA 600 using the work of another auditor. Thank you so much.